Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin here with my co-host James Haskell. And in this episode, we're going to discuss some of the recent comments by Cincinnati Bengal defensive back Jesse Bates, saying the Bengals knew exactly who Lamar wanted to target in the passing game. He wanted to go to 89, Mark Andrews, and 15, Marquise Brown. And they couldn't stop it. So, Jimmy, my question to you is, do the Ravens and Lamar Jackson rely too heavily and target too heavily Marquise and Mark Andrews, and should they get other players more involved?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like, yeah. My answer is this: yes and yes. Because yes, we rely on them too heavily, but my rebut to that would be, can you blame him?
Right.
But also I do think there are some guys that we can bring along. Namely, I should say guy that I'm confident in. I want to get Devin Duvernay the ball, man. Every time he has the ball in his hands, something happens. I want to see more of it. I think he can be our number 3 option in the passing attack behind Mark Andrews, of course, Hollywood Brown being the 1 and 2. And I think Duvernay's the guy. I'm kind of over the Boykin experiment. He needs to move to tight end or move along. Mm-hmm. John Harbaugh in the interview said that Boykin, isn't catching, and that's what the stats are. He's not getting a lot of catches and things like that, but he's doing everything else. So he's not doing anything that registers as important to wide receiver, apparently. But he's doing good.
Yeah,
I'm not
he's
buying
coach talking. Yeah, he's clearly trying to boost the the morale, I guess, of his player. But that's what you should do as a coach. You don't go to the media and start talking, even if even if the media baits you into it. You gotta coach talk them up. But I agree with you. I'm done with the Miles Boykin experiment. To me, he plays small. He plays soft. He doesn't attack the ball. He doesn't even look like he wants the ball or expects the ball. We saw that on that interception where he just didn't come out of his route. He didn't get his head around, didn't look for the ball, and it was an easy interception. So, yeah, I'm done with Miles Boykin. But as far as the question, do they rely too heavily? I was kind of torn on that. I don't know if what they do is really an outlier. When you look at most teams, they have their best players and they try and get their best players the ball. I think that's what every team does. I look at the team that everyone in the AFC is chasing right now, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, a lot of ways the Ravens are trying to emulate what they did in Kansas City. They got their Tyreek Hill and Hollywood Brown. They got their Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews. And I look at their stats, and well, it's not surprising. Their two most targeted players on Kansas City are Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. Travis Kelce leads them with 46 targets, and Tyreek Hill is second with 35. And then Sammy Watkins is third with 29. So, and I look at it, I don't know if I mentioned the target share in Baltimore yet. So let me just quickly do that. Marquise leads the team with 36 targets, and Andrews is second with 29. And then third is Boykin, as we mentioned, with 17. So I don't think it's abnormal that you target your best and most talented players more often than you do your less talented. I think that's completely normal. Now the question is, are they using that that obvious it's known. It's obvious around the league that the best players get the ball the most. That's pretty clear. But you can use that also as a form of deception. And that's the question. Are they using that as a correct form of deception, also setting up other players to work off of those guys? Now, that is up for debate because you look at the catch percentages from some of these other guys, and we mentioned Miles Boykin. He's got 17 targets. He's only turned that into 10 catches, which is just over, it's 58% a catch rate. That's got to go up. So if you are going to play off of those guys and they're going to get the lion's share of the targets, that's fine. But when you do target the other guys, the catch percentage has got to be up, and you got to target them in meaningful ways. You can't have just late stats where it's a meaningless catch. I'm talking in big moments. You got to be able to look to some of these guys when the defenses are going to go, all right, it's third and long. We're not going to let Mark Andrews beat us over the middle, and we're not going to let Marquise beat us on the outside. So you have to be able to use them more than just as the leading target getters. They also have to be the best distraction on the team in order to get the other guys more
Yeah.
involved. I mean, I'm not saying they should ever out target the two best players, Brown and Andrews, but they should be able to make impact plays in big moments. And we see that in other teams. I keep bringing up the Chiefs, but that's just because that's who they're chasing. We had the gentleman on from the Chiefs Wire, and he talked about the connection that Demarcus Robinson and Pat Mahomes have in big situations, and that's what I need to see. So I want to see. Yeah, I still want to see Andrews and Hollywood getting the bulk of the targets because they're our best players. I don't want them to have the ball the most, but when the other guys are involved and when the other guys get targets, they need to turn them into catches. They need to have a higher catch
Mm-hmm.
percentage than I'm seeing right now because it's not getting it done. And they need to make big plays on third down and hopefully get some help in the red zone for Mark Andrews. But what are your thoughts on what I said?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. While people could say, is he focusing too much on those guys? I believe that Lamar is doing a good job when he has time going through his progression. We draw up a lot of plays for those guys, and a lot of those guys or those two guys win their one-on-one battles and make create an opportunity for the ball to be thrown to them. Like that's just a credit to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they create those opportunities because they're number one option on the play. They're plan A, and they've beaten their guys. So Lamar's going to throw the ball. Why look somewhere else, right?
Right.
But I do think I mentioned Devin Duvernay. Another name I want to mention is Willie Snead. I don't know where this is what his third year with the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where this falls as far as like, we're going into, we're 6 weeks in now. And I don't know if he's up or down as far as receptions at this point, based on historical data with the Ravens, not including his New Orleans time. And he's not complaining about it. But you talked about big moments. Willie's had his whole career had big plays and big moments. And so I think that could be something else we work on doing is to continue to diversify our passing game. Let's not sleep on Willie, not as far as not you and I, but I mean the Ravens. Let's not forget about him,
Mm-hmm.
right? And maybe get him a little more involved in those big moments along with Devin. So I think that could be another thing we can do as well. But I totally agree with you where saying we're too focused on these two guys, I would say yes, just like you said, just like everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there's some value to slinging it around and not knowing where the ball's going. I mean, look at Russell Wilson. He will throw the ball to anyone at any time, and you better be on your toes. And there are some times where I feel like when Lamar is scrambling, he gets a little bit of tunnel vision.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the answer here is not just in the wide receiver core. We always talk about this, and I don't know if Greg Roman's ever done a good job at this anywhere he's been. Man, we need to dump it off and get the running backs more involved in the passing game.
Mm-hmm.
We got weapons back there. If any of them, but especially Mark and especially JK,
Mm-hmm.
dump them the ball, put them on a wheel route. Get anytime they're lined up against the linebacker, that should be your that should be your number one option because he's gonna torch that linebacker. So anyway, I think that getting them involved in the passing game might help diversify, because that seems to be the larger question. Are we diversifying our passing game enough? Is it well enough diversified to be deceptive? I think that
Right.
getting the running backs more involved might also be a better option than just looking deeper down the depth chart for wide receivers and tight ends.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I do like Willie getting more involved. I think he's a savvy vet. He's a guy that you can
Yeah.
trust. But you mentioned the Seahawks, and I think their number one and number two receivers are who, Jimmy?
Yeah, DK and the fast guy. Geez, a
Lockett.
whiz. I had him last year.
Lockett.
Oh, Lockett. Yeah,
Yeah,
Lockett. I
so
had him on my fantasy last year.
and I just pulled their stats up. DK leads the team with 39 targets. Tyler's second with 38 targets, and the next player
Right.
is Carson with 23. So you can see that every team throws the ball to their best two
Yeah.
pass catchers the most. I mean,
Right.
it's just how it is. So yeah, I understand why Jesse Bates can say that. He's frustrated. Well, I know why he's frustrated, because a lot of those catches Andrews made were on Jesse Bates. So
They
he's
doo-dooed on him.
yeah, I mean, so he's frustrated. I think a lot of that is just he's frustrated with his lack of performance. And we see, I mean, I do it all the time, hey, I'm not playing well. Whose fault is it? Can't be my fault, can't be my fault. It's somebody else's fault. So I think a lot of people get into that, but that's completely normal that their best two players get the most targets. Completely normal. And that's something we see no matter. Pull up a team, guys. You're going to see it. And outside of injuries, the best two players get the most targets. It's just how it is. So it's completely normal, but I would like to see, as you mentioned, I want to see Snead and I want to see Duvernay, especially with his youth, get more involved. And yes, get the backs more involved. It's not Greg Roman's thing, but get the backs more involved in the passing game. I mean, my goodness, when I look at J.K. Dobbins and what he's doing in the passing game, he's been phenomenal. He's caught 9 out of 10 targets. I mean, he's averaging 8 yards of reception, which as a running back is pretty darn good. It's darn near a first down. So yeah, get the backs more involved, throwing the ball, and then get Snead and Duvernay going.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see how that progresses and moves along. I tell you what, I don't think there's very many people that want Duvernay is built different. Like we've talked about Deebo Samuels. I didn't realize the similarities until I started watching. I mean, I don't think there's very many DBs that want to square up against Duvernay when he gets a full head of steam. He is a thick wide receiver. He's not, your slender, make you miss guy. He's gonna go in your mouth and out your backside. That's what he's gonna do. He's gonna go right through you.
Yep.
So I want to see more of that. It's definitely exciting. So yeah, I mean, but I don't think Lamar is getting tunnel vision. Like except when he rolls out of the pocket, I think that happens every once in a while. But I'm seeing him work through his progression when he has time. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think he'd like to have a couple throws back where if you pull up I'm sure there's people out there have created YouTube videos of him missing open players and maybe throwing it into coverage. But that can happen if you look at a granular look at that. They could happen on everybody. Everybody misses people. Now, we'd like him to hit them all, and I'm not excusing that, but I'm sure that happens all around the league. We just notice it more because we watch every single play of the Ravens. We don't watch every single play of every team. I mean, you mentioned the Seahawks. You probably didn't realize when you mentioned them that their targets would look the way they did because we just don't watch every snap of every game like we do the Ravens. So, yeah, I think we're just hypercritical because they're our team. And that's every fan base is the same way about their team. I mean, you pull up it's funny, you pull up the fan boards of any team and you'll be shocked to see the criticisms they get. Mike Tomlin gets killed in Pittsburgh. Is there any doubt that he's a top 5 coach in the league? And he's a Hall of Fame coach, in my opinion. He's never had a losing season, and he's been there a long time. It's pretty incredible. You pull up New Orleans, they bash on Sean Payton's play selection. I think outside of New Orleans, everyone lauds him for his innovation on offense and his play calling, and they consider him a top 3 play caller. So it's really just fan bases are hardest on their team, and that's normal. So that's normal.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And like for anyone that's going to put in the comments that Lamar, like you said, misses a ton of wide open guys. If you were talking about looking at other teams. If you go back to that playoff game last year with the Patriots, there were the targets to Julian Edelman in comparison to everyone else were insane. In that last play, when their season was on the line, or that last drive or whatever, I think that Julian Edelman had 3 people on him. And Tom Brady, because he trusts him, still threw him the ball. Exactly. It just happens that way. Like you said, every team has that. If Tom Brady's the GOAT, even he does that. Everyone else is going to do the same thing. Yeah. So let us know your guys' thoughts. Is Lamar Jackson too focused on Hollywood and Andrews? And on your wayside, does it matter? Is that actually affecting us, or is that just normal? Yeah. We think that's the way it goes. We want to know your guys' thoughts. Leave your comments, leave a like, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
See you.